Well, everybody, I'm making a game. Um, my name's Mug, or Mugster, and my game is going to be called Mug's Game. I made this cool little graphic. I want to go over kind of um, my plans for the game. So, I think the most exciting for me is probably the art. Um, so, I want it to look. This is a Kingdom Two Crowns image, um, but I really like the look of Kingdom, like Kingdom Classic and Kingdom Two Crowns, like that 8-bit pixelated style. But that's not what I'm planning to do for my game. Instead, I actually want this like illustrated look that you see in this specific image. So like this one's not as fancy, but it's still like an illustrated look. Um, so you can kind of see what I'm going for. I want that illustrated look for my game with those poppy colors. So poppy colors, illustrated, kind of just like everything just looks really nice. And then I guess I'll just go into the game ideas. So I'm going to be using Godot. If you guys don't know what Godot is, it's just a game engine um, to create games, and it's super lightweight, super easy, easy to use, super nice. I've only been using it for a couple days. This is gonna be my first game ever. Um, but yeah, I'll go into more in like the actual code and the game itself that I'm making in a little bit. Yeah, and then I've got the game design document, which goes over pretty much just this stuff that I have right here. It's not really up to date yet. I need to go through all that. And then the game loop, it's going to be really similar to Kingdom and Dome Keeper. If you guys haven't played either of these, you should definitely go play these games. Hollow Knight's also really popular, super fun. So the game loop would be um, the sun rises, morning starts, and it begins a new day. The player needs to get coins and materials to build settlements, or like, I guess, like buildings. Um, and then um, using those settlements, he can create tools and kind of prep his workers, or I guess the player's workers, so your workers, um, before night, and a wave of monsters comes every night, um, and monsters come in waves, and yeah, and then repeat. So night falls, fight the monsters, morning comes up, get materials, get coins, prep for the next night, build and build and build, and make your settlement bigger, make your settlement stronger, get better weapons. Wave gets bigger, repeat. One of the goals of the game is to destroy the monster base nest place. And then plot. Player starts with nothing, gets wanderers to become workers of the settlement. Collect coins to pay for things. Monsters come in floods. Flip to other dimension, like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. So this is something that I wanted to do. Is kind of have like the Upside Down. So you'd be playing in the game, and there's another dimension that's just a replica of the dimension the player plays in, except it's the dark version where the monsters are. And then I was thinking of making a way like the player finds, uh, a cool orb or disc or something super cool that allows the player to transport to this other dimension. And then through that dimension, the player can go break the nest. and it'll just be a long process. And then diggable surface beneath, sorry, diggable, like you can dig into the ground beneath the surface, just like in Dome Keeper, to get material. And then I have an implementation list. You can look at all these I want to add into the list. So I've added droppable coins and wanderers. So if we go into the game, whoopsie. So if we go into the game, I've made a couple things. I guess I'll just start in the scene. So this is our game scene. We have our game, which is just I think that's a Node 2D, yeah. And then we have our game manager, which just references a script, which I'll show in a second, just to manage a couple things in the game. Then we have our player, which is right here. Right now it's just a samurai girl, but that's definitely going to change. I want to make my own art, and like I said, I want it to be illustrated, look cool. This player has a child camera. This camera 2D is what the game is going to view. So when I click play and we have this little box that the game is viewing, that's the camera. And I made it a child of the player and stuck it so that it just follows the player. And then we have a score label, which also follows the player around and just keeps track of how many coins we've picked up. And then we've got a bunch of coins in here. I can move those. I can add more coins. And then we've got an environment with a parallax background, which right now doesn't do anything. And it's got a sprite, which is this. And then we've got a static body, which is the ground, which goes infinitely. If you look at the collision shape for the static body, it's a world boundary, so it's just going to go on forever. And then we have a sprite here, which I added, which is just this texture. And then we've got another label, which just kind of tells you the controls. I'll move that around. And then we've got a little wanderer. Okay, now I'm going to go over the scripts really quick. So if we go into our player, we basically, in our physics process, are going to check if we want to drop a coin, and when we press space, we're going to go into our game manager script and use the function drop a coin, which in here, drop a coin will subtract 1 from our coin amount and update our label in our game to visually tell us that we've dropped a coin. And then this basically instantiates a coin into the game. Now if we move on, we have a variable that checks if we want the player to move, and if he can move, we're going to make sure he falls to the ground if he's not on the floor. And then we're going to check if we're moving left or right with our inputs. And then if our player is on the floor and we are moving because direction is not 0, then we're basically just going to check if we're pressing sprint or not pressing sprint. But if we are moving and not pressing sprint, we want to play our walk animation and set our speed to 80. And if we are pressing sprint, we want to play our run animation and set our speed to 180. And then if I go into our player, I can show you these animations. So we've got all these different animations we can play from: jump, run, walk, yeah. And then we've got basically just flip the sprite of the player depending on which direction they're moving here. And then else if direction is 0, so up here we checked if direction was not 0, which would mean the player is moving. Else if direction is 0 and the player is not moving, then we want to play the player's idle animation. And then if we are pressing our attack button, which is the left mouse button, then we want to play the player's attack animation. Set our direction to 0, set can move to false so the player stops moving, and then set a timer. This timer is just going to go for as long as our attack goes, and when we press start, it's going to start that timer. On the end of that timer, we're going to set can move back to true. That way we can move again. And then we've got if direction. Basically, this just makes the player move in the direction we're wanting them to move. And then we've got move and slide. Honestly, don't really know what that does, but I need it. And then we've got a function which just checks if an animation is finished, and if it has, we play the idle animation. Because if I don't do that, and let's say I play an attack animation, it's just going to end the attack animation and just kind of sit on the last frame. It's just going to like sit here, and it's not going to keep playing idle. So, yeah. If we go into our coin, when the script is ready, we're going to, honestly, I don't know. In our coin, we're going to check if anything has entered the coin's collision. And if it has, we're going to check if it's a player or a wanderer, and if the mask value is true. That's the whole bunch of jargon I'll get into in future videos, but basically it's just meaning if we bumped into a player, if the coin bumped into a player, then we're going to add a coin in our game manager scene. And if the wanderer bumped into the coin, then we're going to basically get rid of the coin, and we're going to turn the wanderer into a citizen. Okay, now in our wanderer scene, we basically want to make sure we're displaying the correct visual, whether we want to be a wanderer or a citizen. We're going to make sure that we have gravity. We're going to make sure if we're not a citizen yet, we are playing the wanderer idle animation. And we check if there's a coin nearby, and we want to move towards that coin, which is all this stuff. And if we do hit the coin, then we want to become a citizen. So back to the game board. If you guys have any suggestions for me, please let me know in the comments. Obviously, this is the first episode. I probably won't get many views, if any, but I want to document this whole process, so I'm super excited, and I'll see you guys in the next one.